Hi there and welcome. I'm Jordan, and in this video I'll be talking about Ayurveda and lichen sclerosus. I recently just read a really big book actually about Ayurveda, and I was finding bits of it really pertained to lichen sclerosus, and I thought it was very interesting. And I wanted to share bits of the book that I highlighted and that may be interesting or pertain to your health and lichen sclerosus, or just give you something to think about when considering your lichen sclerosus. And the book that I have been reading is the Complete Book of Ayurveda, and it is by Hans H. Reiner. And it's really big. It's over 600 pages, but it's very informative. I'm very new to Ayurveda. I didn't know anything about it until actually reading this book, but I found it very, very interesting and knowledgeable, which is why I wanted to share it. If you don't know what Ayurveda is, it is a way of life, like a lifestyle that is specifically about keeping balance in your life to optimize your health. And when you have imbalance, that's when illness and sickness sets in, and you can get back on track by regaining your balance. And so Ayurveda is actually a very ancient form of medicine and, like I said, lifestyle. But it is over 2,000 years old, and it's actually very advanced. Some of their surgical procedures, or just like their different ways of doing medicine, is only just being uncovered and practiced in today's medicine. And that's really interesting and gives it a little bit more like credence and something to actually consider, especially if you're like very much on like the Western medicine is the only way. You may want to consider the ancient medicines and their way of thinking. Just like with ancient Chinese medicine, there are a lot of similarities. There are a few key differences, but a lot of it's very similar. So I'll share the things that I specifically learned from this book. I highlighted a lot. That's what these little butterfly tags are, just lines from the book that I would like to read to you. Again, I do not know a lot about Ayurveda. It is still very new to me. I am still digesting all the information from this book, and some of it was a little bit advanced for me, just being brand new to it. So I am really just going to read a few lines that I highlighted because I know that that information would come across better, specifically from the author, than from myself. A short description of some of the Ayurvedic thinking is there are 3 ruling energies in each person, and an individual will have a ruling energy called a dosha. So there's vata, pitta, and kapha. For example, I am a pitta person, and so you have certain characteristics and you should follow specific diets, and your body reacts to your environment in a certain way. When considering your dominant dosha, there are specific foods you want to either avoid or consume to best facilitate your health. So moving specifically into the information I thought pertained specifically to lichen sclerosus, has a lot to do with how our skin is formed and how the disturbances affect the formation of our skin, along with our diet and constipation, things like that. I, again, don't know exactly how to present this information, so that's the best way that I could think of. So just getting into what I thought specifically related to lichen sclerosus is weak metabolism of the cells that compose the scrota leads to functional disturbances that may be followed by structural changes in them. This may bring about an interaction with the dosha at the site of arrest. So when something is out of order in the body, the part of your body that is the weakest, it will arrest or it will cause issues in that specific spot. And so with lichen sclerosus, ours is where our lichen sclerosus is present. So what is leading to the disturbance and then affecting the tissue? This next part is about how our Sorry, I had to keep checking the baby monitor because my little one is taking our morning nap. So you'll see me look over there. So this next part is about how our tissues are formed and how disturbances in each of those phases can ultimately affect the last tissue that is formed, which is our reproductive tissue. So on this page, there is a diagram of plasma, blood, muscle tissue, fat tissue, bone tissue, neck and nerve tissue, and then last, reproductive tissue. And that is the order that things are formed. So if there is a disturbance in any of those, so if there's a disturbance in the plasma, then it will affect your blood, which will then affect your muscle tissue and so forth. Or if there is a disturbance in your nerve and your back and nerve tissue, then your reproductive tissue, the last one, will not form correctly. So a disturbance in any of those is what will ultimately cause problems in the chain of events, and for us with lichen sclerosus ends up being in our reproductive tissue. So somewhere along the line there is a disturbance that is affecting our tissues. So the line that goes along with that is, during the process of metabolism, tissues are separated from waste products. The so-called digested food, the fundamental base of sapta dhutu, I don't know how to say it, undergoes 7 consecutive evolutionary stages, during which the potential energy of each increases. And then, disturbances in any of these tissues weaken the tissues that develop subsequently. Weak tissue metabolism leads to the formation of a lot of poor quality tissue. Okay, and then skipping down a bit. Sufficient oxygen creates a healthy body and skin color. Many tissues result from oxygen deficiency in the tissues, which is interesting because lichen sclerosus is associated with that pale complexion, and so maybe there is not enough oxygen getting to those tissues. And right after that is this, I'm not very good at pronouncing, so I'll put the word up, but too much rakta dhutu leads to skin diseases, abscesses, enlargement of the liver and spleen, high blood pressure, ulcers, hepatitis, burning sensation, and a reddening of the skin, eyes, and urine. And this last part is tissues, and I'm adding that word in, are constantly being formed, destroyed, and reformed, maintaining a state of dynamic metabolic equilibrium. So you have the potential to heal those tissues. I think that's really important, especially when considering lichen sclerosus, because everyone tells you can't, but you have the potential to heal your tissues. I believe that strongly, and I think that needs to be shared more, but I believe that if you fix the disturbance in your body somewhere along the line, you can ultimately lead to that chain of reaction where maybe the blood needs to get fixed, and then those other things will slowly get fixed, and then your reproductive tissue will get fixed. I think that's important to share, is that your tissues are constantly being formed, destroyed, and reformed, maintaining a state of dynamic metabolic equilibrium. So now I'm going to touch on nutrition, but really it pertains to lichen sclerosus, and that is improper nutrition is almost always the cause of illness. So we possibly are not consuming food that is healthy for us. It might not be healthy for our specific constitution, or maybe it's something more general, like we specifically are eating something that is triggering our lichen sclerosus. On to the next one. It is important to remember that chronic illness does not become obvious until after many years of improper nutrition. Some of the most obstinate illnesses to cure are skin diseases. In the chapters on pathology, it has been stated over and over again that the main cause for skin diseases is improper nutrition. And that goes back to what we just learned about how things are formed, starting with the plasma, the blood, and on until it gets to the reproductive tissues. And so if we are not nourishing our bodies properly, we are then affecting all of those stages, causing the disturbance in our reproductive tissues. And so that is why nutrition is the most important thing, and why you may want to consider those specific foods for your constitution, or if you have a disturbance, changing your diet. Like if you have a Vata disturbance, changing your diet to help facilitate your body in healing and coming back into balance. Again, I do not know a whole lot about all of this. I'm just learning and just sharing what I just learned. But I thought that was really, really great information. And it also says health is for all, which I think in our modern society, we often think, oh, I have this problem. I have lichen sclerosus. I have whatever it is. Like, that's just part of me. But health is for all, and we can take authority over our bodies. We have the choice to heal our bodies and become knowledgeable about all aspects and really dive deep and take authority over this and regain our health. Here's another part I thought was really great too, is negative and positive emotions have direct impact on our body. Stress and such emotions as anger will reduce the immunity of an individual. If such a status persists, it will set in motion the disease process on the somatic level, which I also think is interesting because my lichen sclerosus always would flare up when I was anxious or just like a lot was going on internally, like mentally. And I think there is a big correlation between our emotions and our health, which is something that is very present and acknowledged in Ayurveda, which I appreciate. And now just touching on what you can do to help your body. I'll touch on this later in the video too, but pertaining specifically to lichen sclerosus, they talk about treating your bodies with oils or creams and how that can help you. And sesame oil is the best vegetable oil, and ghee is the best animal fat. And so you may want to consider applying that in your affected area with your lichen sclerosus. Depending on your constitution, one might be better for you than the other. So you'd want to look into that with a provider. I know a lot of times they're used as a base in Ayurvedic medicine, and you'll mix in like other healing plants to help with whatever issue you're having. But you may want to just also try sesame oil. And now just touching on overall health, especially, we are focusing on lichen sclerosus, but your overall health also matters because that is what leads to, down the line, having the tissue problems. So the few lines I want to share are, proper health can only be achieved if the waste products are eliminated at the proper time in the proper quantity from the body. Accumulation of waste products automatically lead to disturbances of the dosha and in turn to illness. The body is the product of food. Disease occurs as a result of faulty nutrition. Body tissues, dhatu, are constantly used up in the ongoing life support processes. The potential deficit is made up by the intake and digestion of nutrition, which builds new tissues. Health and illness are therefore directly dependent on nutrition and digestion. Talking again about the importance of getting rid of your waste. Since urine is the waste product of the body, elimination should take place at least 6 times every day. Any deviation from this normal indicates a disturbance. If a person is healthy and eats properly, the food is completely digested. A healthy person's stool is solid, of sufficient quality, light in weight, which floats in the water, yellowish, not too slimy, smells bad, and is eliminated without any strain twice a day. And as we know, lichen sclerosus is associated with chronic constipation. So there is a disturbance at the metabolism level, and if we are able to correct that disturbance, then later in the process of the tissues, we can correct the formation of the tissue. That's my personal thought. I know that was a little bit all over the place, and I really appreciate you hanging in there and listening to those parts that I had highlighted and wanted to share. Again, the book is The Complete Book of Ayurveda by Hans H. Reiner. It's really informative, and I think there's a lot to learn from Ayurveda and an Ayurvedic doctor. And so if this felt relevant to you, you may want to consider pursuing a Ayurvedic medicine doctor and seeing how they can help you find the root cause of your disturbance and help with the lichen sclerosus. I looked it up, and there are Ayurvedic doctors that work specifically with lichen sclerosus, but I do think probably all Ayurvedic doctors would, because they're ultimately working with the whole body and any disturbances in the doshas, the vata, pitta, and kapha, which would lead to the tissue. But like we just read, tissues are the hardest disturbance to heal, and so I think it would take a lot of dedication in really sticking to a diet and maintaining balance in your body, in your day-to-day life, to get those ultimate results of fixing those reproductive tissues. So I will leave a link to this book and also the doctors or the websites that I found that talk specifically about Ayurveda and lichen sclerosus. Some of them even share like different herbs or medicines you may want to use, like mixed with the sesame oil. Like one of them was turmeric, I guess helps with eczema, but you'll really have to do your own research, and I would highly recommend getting the guidance with a Ayurvedic medicine doctor. But again, I thought this was really interesting and knowledgeable, and I wanted to share it, hoping that it will help others that are just interested in learning more about their bodies and how we can take our health into our own authority and actually heal our bodies. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.